Hello everyone, this is Lionel, the man behind the pictures and the videos. Now, I'm going to tell you a bit about my history. In 1960, or thereabouts, we moved to Hampage Farm, which is between Winchester and Alresford. At that time, I was into 8mm cine film, and I actually recorded most of the happenings on the farm for a whole year. So I've incorporated that into this film. A few years back I went to the farm just to see what changes had been made. It was pretty much derelict. It was nothing like, well, the buildings were similar to what I remember, but the internal parts had been changed, change of use, and the dryer was gone, which I used. And anyway, I hope you'll enjoy what you see. Hampage Farm lies between Winchester and New Alresford, just off the A31. The bottom arrow is the current farm and the top one is the old farm, which was where I lived, and right next to Hampage Wood. I just got off the bus, which I couldn't do in 1960 because there wasn't a bus down there. It stopped about a mile away. And this is the road up to the farm, sunken lane, and in 62 it was totally different, as you will see. It was totally full, absolutely full up with snow after the heavy snowfalls we had in that winter. We tried to clear it with a very primitive machine, just a four-wheel drive tractor and a kind of a blade on the front, which wasn't very effective because you kind of push it off the side slightly, but wasn't very effective. Tractor got stuck a few times, pulled it backwards and then tried again, and I can't remember if we ever got down the bottom or not. Back up the old grain dryer storage barn again. I'm just having a wander around the back, see what I can see. Inside the dryer and that barn was the various bits of equipment to handle the grain. I used to work in there most of the, well, I did the harvest inside that building. There's a control panel that operated each conveyor or elevator. Weren't many of them. And the Alvin Blanche single tray dryer, 3 to 4 ton an hour, that's all it did. And then the Turner cleaner, which was a very efficient cleaner, very efficient, well made, wooden design. And the sacks of grain we bagged off, and they'd either be loaded onto lorries or we took some down to Winchester to one of the mills. Sack trucks down there and various equipment were used. That there looked very much to me like the old water pump. Had a chain run over the top of those two sprockets, which went backwards and forwards to have the pump action. And I guess that's the rest of it there. The rest of the machinery had a motor on it, one L motor on it, drove that pulley anyway. The old scales, I've got to use those many hundreds and thousands of times, bagging up, see, grain off the dryer. They're the old sack lift trucks that we used to use to lift the bags up with. They've survived, and the scales, got to use them a few times. Fancy seeing them still here. And the balance scales. We had a silage clamp here somewhere, one of these buildings, must be this one. And I sat on the front of the tractor to keep the front down. I was using a butt rake and I fell off. Knocked myself out, and next thing I do, not remember, I was in the sheds on the other side. That was a grain dryer and store in there. I spent my harvest times usually. I've also got bins on this side now, which I didn't have then. I can't remember what was down there. I think it was just a wall. Because those days it's all bagged off in sacks. The intake pit was there for the dryer. There's the ramp still to it. And the old fuel tank over there, that was there. But the trees behind was a little plantation about 5 foot tall. I came here. You should walk through it and cut through it with a mower. Enormous now. That's the same view in 61, and though it's raining, there's the fuel tank, and not the, minus the shed. And have a look at the plantation there, which was about 4 foot tall then, and great change. Dryer's gone now, it's over in that corner. All seems to be just a barn back there. We had that put up, that didn't have the sloping back on it then. It's a Dutch barn. We built the bells, the rick first, and then put the barn over the top of it. So I guess these sheds must have been here. I can't remember this shed very well. Must have been a tractor shed, I guess. Little workshop in there we had, and the water pump was around the corner there. And there's a reservoir, so doesn't look as if in use anymore because the float's right down the bottom. Must be empty. And further up there is my old house. So I'll make my way up there in a minute. Yes, this road was a cinder track, and we used to go into Andover railway station because they had always a good supply of clinker and cinders there from the engines, and bring it back in trail loads and spread it on this road, and use our rollers to sort of roll it down a bit. There's a bit here where I fell off the bike. There's the house. It didn't change a bit. That big window wasn't there in the middle, nor was the extension on the other end. Yeah, big change. That's the end of this, my old house where I lived with Mum. And that barn at the back was just a really old shearing barn. Those buildings weren't there. Well, in those days, the sprayer was about, I think, covered about 10 feet. Very simple machine. Tank held 40 gallons. And everybody seemed to have one of those. This is where our silage clamp was. It appears on the Hampage film. The field we were getting the grass off of with the old kid forage harvester. And 60 years earlier, this was the view. That was looking towards the towards the A31. Busy making silage. Kid forage harvester, which was required very low power and was very versatile. You could also cut grass for hay with it by changing the chute. After the grass was tipped out of the trailer, it was used a butt rake to push it back up onto the heap, where some unfortunate people had to spread it. It was invariably a tangle of grass, which took quite a bit of getting out. That's looking towards Chetsford Head. There's trees on top of the hill. Now the haymaking time, the old acrobat spider, which could put 2 rows into one, or it could turn the rows over, or it could make a complete tangle of it all, which it invariably did. And there with the baler. This was the field of lucerne, which when we sowed it, we put a dressing on it, and later that year, when it came up, so did thousands of mushrooms, which were never there before. Quite amazing, really. So we had quite a feast out of that, quite a bonus. The New Holland baler, probably me driving it. But lucerne hay is very stalky stuff. It's horrible stuff to handle. It's quite dusty. All the leaf falls off of it when it's dry. Here we are tipping the bales out singly, so they will all have to be picked up by hand at some later date. In the distance is Stoke, where I would later work. Off goes the combine, ready to start harvest. There you can see Chetsford Head again, those tall trees on the hill. That's the grain intake pit which you saw earlier was bricked up. Now there in the distance is the A31, which recently been turned into a dual carriageway, and a lot of the chalk we got from it we used on the farm. Massey Harris combine, chain driven, very simple. In my younger days I worked on machines that what you call bagging combines, which you had to put everything into sacks and stand on it. It took 3 or 4 men to operate them. Here, the bale sledge, very simple steel construction that stood along behind the baler, and to get them off, use a long spiky bar, push, and hopefully they stood up. All the bale handling was done by hand, bale at a time. We had no machines, no elevators, no grabs. It was hard work, but that's what we did. And that's the stack of bales. We had to make that stack before the barn was put up. It was due for a barn, but there was a delay in supplying it, so we had to build the stack first. The barn was put over the top of it. The old trader we had, very useful trader. It was quite a low loader, so it was quite easy to get quite a few layers on there. Again, they had to put up with a manually or a fork of some sort like this one. This was a young lad that was having a bit of fun with it, or we were having a bit of fun with them. These were not light bale, they were quite heavy, so it took a bit of doing, and he wasn't that experienced. Another go. First, get the fork out. Try again. Dig the end of the handle in the ground to get it balanced up. And oh no! Never mind. Try again. Forward onto the trailer. Great, but you've forgotten the fork. And watch out! Oh my goodness, that was close. Autumn ploughing now. Four-wheel drive tractor, but we only had a 3-furrow plough. The ground was so heavy up there that it was no other machine could do it. That was an old Ford Super Major. Now we're autumn sowing, which we used a crawler to pull the drill. And that was quite successful. My job to ride on the back of the drill and check that all the spokes were running, seed and fertilizer. But we carried fertilizer mainly and seed on the top, so I could refill it on the move. That saved going back to the trailer too often. Pull a rope to get the drill out of gear and out of the ground. Autumn time, towards winter, cattle are feeding. We had some cattle, black Aberdeen Angus, I think they were. We fed them kale, which we cut with a forage harvester, and they were bringing some feed mix down. We had mixed this ourselves in a very small shed, which was incredibly dusty. I think there was about 4 or 5 ingredients went into it. We turned it back and forth with shovels until it was mixed, then bagged it up. This was our house, so totally different from what it is today. And this is when the snows came on Boxing Day. And everything was eventually glazed over. It was just like a sheet of ice. And that was a ploughed field. At sunset it was quite spectacular, like looking into a lake. And it was like this for weeks. In fact, the snow didn't go until March. In some places where the drifts were, it was April. It's that little plantation up the top by the farm, which I talked about earlier. A few sheep we had, not very many. We'll find jobs to do indoors this time of the year. There's nothing you could do out in the fields apart from feed the cattle. Eventually spring came. Out came the catkins. Tractors now pulling the disc harrows, work the ground down. Still see snow around the outside of the field there. Pumping oil or grease into the roller bearings, keep them from getting hot and worn. There are only brass bushes in there, no ball bearings. And that was a machine called a vibratiller. It was a spring-tine cultivator, in effect. I think that was me driving it. Down there, that white line is where they were digging the road out for the dual carriageway. That's all chalk around there, of course. And there's a plough being followed by many seagulls, which they used to do. They seemed to know when you were ploughing. They appeared out of nowhere in their hundreds. Two mills in Winchester. This is the city mill, which I think is the top one, run by the National Trust. And then we'll go downstream and look at the next one. This is the next mill down, and that's the one I'm interested in, because we used to bring sacks of corn or wheat probably down here from the farm I worked on and deliver it to this mill. Although it's changed now, we'll walk around the front and have another look. We would bring the tractor and trailer down this hill. Beyond this it goes up over Morn Hill, more or less straight onto the A31. And then at the bottom we turn right and swing into the mill, which was. This is the area we would bring our loads of grain down to and unload. And I think this area on the front is new, been changed a lot. But we would pull up here and there was a conveyor that went up into the top of the building, and it was literally steel bars on a chain. You put the sack against the bar and it took it up. Quite simple. Anyway, it's all gone now. I've tried to find old photographs of this mill, in particular this area, but it's simply disappeared. There's no trace of it. It was converted into flats in about 1967, I believe, and that's all that remains.